you and I are both Dak Prescott guys. I mean, I'm wearing his freaking hat for crying out loud. But I did a segment on him earlier in the show about how, we often, of course, the blame is going to go on quarterbacks and coaches when you lose playoff games. That's just how the business works.
Right.
But it's aside from this past game against San Francisco, the notion that he's this like James Harden-esque playoff choker is just it's overblown. But last year, obviously, the picks were the issue. Some of them were not his fault. Some were off the hands of receivers, miscommunication, and some of them were just flat out bad reads. I remember a pick against Washington at the end of the season where it's like I'm not even sure what he was thinking throwing the ball. The second pick against San Francisco was a horrible decision. So talk about the Dak's picks, and do you think, you mentioned the offense being more Dak stands this year? Do you think those are going to be reduced this year because Dak has historically not been a high turnover guy?
Yeah, this is interesting to me because Dak, we know Dak to not be a high turnover guy. This isn't something that happens, late in quarterbacks' careers. I don't think we see this a lot of the time where guys who don't turn the ball over much suddenly just turn the ball over more than anyone in the league for 2-3 years. That doesn't really happen unless they really switch up the scheme, the offensive coordinator, which hasn't happened until this offseason. So that doesn't really, you can't apply that right here. That being said, with Dak's picks, you mentioned it. It was, and I know that, I hate to be the Cowboys fan that makes excuses for Dak. I really do. He made some bad decisions. You're absolutely right. He had some bad throws, point blank. I mean, that is what it is. But at the same time, when there are YouTube compilations of interceptions bouncing off of your receiver's hands, or interceptions not cutting over in front of the safety instead of going behind them, which is just a misread of the defense on the receiver's part. When there are YouTube compilations of 8-9 picks of that happening in one season to one guy, it's a little uncanny. It's a little odd. And, it just, the biggest thing to me was that Jaguars game. I think that we all
Oh my
probably
gosh, I remember talking about that the next
overtime. It's
day.
like the first or second play of overtime. We got the ball. We're feeling good. We got the first drive. We're going to go down there and score, win the game. It's going to be fine. Bam, bounces right off of Noah Brown's hands. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that happens when Noah Brown is your wide receiver 2. Noah Brown is now listed as wide receiver 4 on the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
Let just think about that. This was Dak Prescott's wide receiver 2 for most of the year last year. And he's wide receiver 4 now on one of the worst teams in the league. It's not inaccurate to say that Dak had no receivers outside of CeeDee Lamb who could create separation from their defender. And Kellen Moore was pretty notorious, and he's kind of started to do this a little bit in Los Angeles already, of drawing up pass routes where the receivers are all kind of clumped in the same place. They don't have separation from each other. And when your receivers can't create separation from the defenders and your offensive coordinator isn't letting your receivers take separation from each other, it's a recipe for picks. I don't care who your quarterback is. I don't. And so I believe that CeeDee Lamb was the only receiver on the Dallas Cowboys last year. You can do your own research. I'm not sure if this is accurate. I know that it's a number like this. I believe CeeDee Lamb was the only receiver on the Dallas Cowboys last year to average over 2 or 3 yards per separation from their defender per catch. And others, such as Michael Gallup, such as Dalton Schultz, were like bottom 10 in the league. So when you look at that, I do think that it's safe to say that hopefully this was a fluke. Hopefully this doesn't continue. Hopefully this doesn't happen again. I don't think it will. Especially with all of the hype around Mike McCarthy's new offense, all the hype around the way it's supposed to be, revolving around Dak. One thing that everyone has said about Dak from the beginning is he's a very cerebral quarterback. They praise what he can do at the line of scrimmage, the way he can read defenses and dissect them. They've compared him, many have compared him to Tom Brady in that sense. I'm not saying he is Tom Brady, obviously.
Sure.
That would be a great overstatement. But they've compared him to Tom Brady when it comes to that specific skill. And if this offense is centered around Dak, and if he can do the things pre-snap that we think and we say he can do, then I see no reason why he should lead the league in interceptions again this year. I truly think it was a fluke. I hope I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'll be very upset. But I don't really think that the interceptions will be a problem, especially when you add on the other side of CeeDee Lamb, one of the fastest receivers and most consistent receivers, no matter what offense he's in, in the entire league, Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, no question about it. And you mentioned a point that I have discussed ad nauseum going back to last season, that, as you mentioned, outside of CeeDee Lamb, the Cowboys, I believe, were bottom of the NFL in yards of separation per play. So, the inability to get open is not just completely on the quarterback. And so I remember there was a stat about Tua and the Dolphins receivers, not to take a shot at Tua because he's a good player, that was sort of on the other side of that spectrum. So that's going to be a question for Dallas this year. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.